I got it.
Have you got it from not hearing you now?
Yeah.
Can you make it so that I can't hear you too? So I'm just kidding. All right. Nice. That's my burn of the day. Welcome to the Web of Tomorrow. We're your hosts, Riley Carrasquillo
And Adam Harris.
And today we're going to be talking about something very special and dear to Adam's heart.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Cue that, like enamored music that they usually play when someone's in love with something, and they give that like glossy film look, and then hearts in the corners and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think Disney Channel uses that a lot.
So I thought of this topic because you just tweeted that last week's episode was off the chain, right? And so I thought, what can we do that's on the chain? And so I thought of JavaScript just method chaining.
Yeah, now we're on the chain. But off the chain is cool. How is being on the chain going to be cool?
Well, I don't know. Method chaining is a cool technique.
Nice. Okay. I don't doubt it. All right, let's jump in then. What is method chaining?
So if you've ever used jQuery, that's probably like the most common example where people would encounter method chaining. And it's just where you can do one function right after another with just like the dot syntax. So like an example would be you've got a selection in jQuery and you do like a .css method, and then you do a .height method, and you do like a .fade method or something.
Right, and jQuery is fairly common. If you haven't used jQuery yet, you may not, ever. Or you may use it a ton at some point. But method chaining, it looks like, so from what I've learned, is a really great way of just tidying up your code.
Yeah, because basically when you got one method after another, the output of one method is the input into the next method. And then the output of that method is the input into the next method. And so another place that you might be kind of familiar with that type of thing is just in the command line, there's a pipe character that takes the output of the previous command and as the input for the next command. Mm-hmm. So it's just called piping your commands.
So we might want to do a refresher of what methods are.
Yeah, it's just a bit of code that has an input and an output, basically.
Okay.
That you can call over and over. You can call it anytime you want to. It's got like a name. CSS method in jQuery. You call it with .css.
So one of the things that I know that method is used quite often with are objects, right?
Yeah. You can like make your own methods that are chainable.
In an object. Or outside of an object. Or is it an object?
Yeah, so like you can make an object that has chainable methods.
Okay, gotcha. Because I know that like when I first started, the word method kind of tripped me up because it looks like anything else almost. But really, there's a few differences. I think a lot of times there's that word prototype associated with them as well,
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand what prototype was.
Yeah,
either.
That could almost be a whole other episode, but like if you're familiar with classical languages like Java or C++, they use their object-oriented programming languages, and they use classes and objects, and so that's called like it uses like classical inheritance, but in JavaScript it's prototypal inheritance, and so you create an object with things on the prototype, then you can create new objects from that, and they inherit everything that's in the prototype.
Okay, cool. And I guess that was the association that I was kind of making with methods, because that's when I was learning. That's when we learned about methods, was in that context. So I guess let's go forward with method chaining. When would you not want to do method chaining?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of times when you don't really need to. I mean, method chaining is something you just get a lot of times from certain libraries. So you get it automatically with certain functions or methods in jQuery, and then you get it in D3. But if you're writing something yourself, you may not write functions that are chainable. It's something you do a lot in functional programming.
Why is that?
So functional programming, this is, again, a whole nother topic. With functional programming, it's all about writing pure methods that have just an input and output that don't have any like side effects. And then you like compose those methods and chain those methods in interesting ways.
Okay. So it seems like some libraries make a lot of use of this method chaining. And so we already talked about jQuery, but you were saying that D3 makes use of this of chain syntax. Is that a huge part of D3?
Yeah, definitely a huge part. So like for instance, you can do a D3.select and select the body tag or something, and then from there just go on and chain other stuff like .append, and you can append a paragraph tag, and then you can do like a .attribute and change the attributes of that tag that you just appended, and then you can even continue and append other stuff. And so you could conceivably do this really long statement that's just a whole bunch of methods chained together, but you don't have to do it that way. You can kind of break the chain and like save, like kind of hard to explain just in audio, but it seems like there's some pre-existing methods that you can make use of, like, because you can make your own methods, right? Yeah.
And then they already have some methods that have been created that you can use, like these select, append, text. So that's the case? Is that the case with JavaScript as well?
Yeah. Actually, JavaScript has some chainable methods built into the language.
What are some of those? Do you know?
Yeah.
Just off the top of your head?
Map, filter, reduce.
Okay, cool. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was kind of trying to get at, because I was looking at those a couple weeks ago, and as you're talking, I was like, crap, that sounds so stinking familiar. Like, so it's this typical little moment where I'm like, okay, that sounds familiar, but I am probably being an idiot and not actually. I'm drawing conclusions that aren't there. But so in this case, yeah, and map and reduce and those types of things are super useful. And they're commonly used in like toy problems and stuff.
And they're also used a lot in just like data manipulation. If you've got like a large array full of data, you may need to filter that data down, or you need to like slightly modify the data, so you use map. Or you may, so what reduce does is it takes an entire array and it reduces it down to a single value. And that single value could be any type, number, string, Boolean. So all three of those methods, they're all objects on array.prototype.
So we can already see with basically what I'm trying to say is we can already see right off the bat how chaining methods are really useful. And then the fact that you can make your own and that they're used fairly widely. You probably just didn't notice that you're already using them, especially if you're using jQuery. And then in D3, it looks like you can do quite a lot. So with D3, like, I don't know, do you have an example that might kind of show some of the ways that you could use chain syntax in a very useful way?
Yeah, so like a common thing in D3 is you want to kind of like get set up and like put an SVG on the page and then put some elements inside of that SVG. So an SVG is just like a normal tag. It's like a special kind of tag in HTML that's like starts an SVG image. So you might have a div that's got an ID of chart. And so what you do in D3 is do D3.select chart, like with the ID chart. And then you can just keep chaining and do .append SVG. And then you can do .height and give it a height, and .width and give it a width. And then you can do .append group, and then do like .class and give it a class, and then .attr for attribute, and then give that some attributes. So that's all.
Whereas like done. Those are all could have been represented by individual work.
They could have been 10 different statements, and instead it's all there in one statement chained together.
That's awesome, because I love so I'm fairly hectic minded as a person. And I can get pretty lost easily when I'm looking at just a lot of random mumbo jumbo. And I mean that like with like folders on your desktop, with your emails organization, your bookmarks on your web browser. So this is cool because it just cleans up your code and lets you find things really readily and easily.
How many icons do you have on your desktop?
How many icons? They're all folders. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10? I'm usually pretty clean.
That's actually not too bad. You know how many I have?
How many?
0.
0?
Yeah. So talking about being organized or messy, that's one of the things that's kind of important to talk about with chained methods is since in JavaScript white space doesn't really matter, you can kind of format this in a way that's a lot more readable than just having this one long line in your JavaScript that's like 100 characters across. And you have to like scroll to the right to read it, right? So what I do is whenever there's a dot and you're starting a new method call, right before the dot, bring that down to a new line. And so each line is a new method on its own line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is awesome. I was looking at some of these. They have like select body, select all, and then as you said, dot append, and then dot text, and it's all stuff that you can manipulate on the DOM or CSS selectors that you can manipulate. D3 is really cool. I didn't realize this is something I didn't know actually before we started. Before you recommended talking about this with me.
Okay, so do you want to wrap up and talk about where they can find us online and stuff?
Yeah, for sure. You can find us online at weboftomorrowpodcast.com. And we have all of our webisodes on there. They're all awesome. All of them are off the chain except for this one. This one is on the chain.
Right.
And we appreciate any feedback that you guys have for us. If you have any things that you'd like, we'd appreciate your input. Rate, subscribe, like us.
Just tweet to us at Web of Tomorrow FM.
And if you want to be a pen pal with Adam, message me and I'll hook you up. He's really good. He's very consistent and he's very personal. He'll get really into it. Next time on the Web of Tomorrow, we'll be going over the binary makeup of candle making.